Tom unexpectedly proposed a divorce when I got home. Until this very day, I had supported him with great devotion. I can't forgive him. I will definitely make him regret it. Without revealing my inner thoughts, I responded to him with a calm face. Being with you makes me poor, and we're getting a divorce, LOL. I'll give you the kid, just pay me 800,000 LOL. Fine, Tom must have been shaken by my too casual reply. But it's too late. From now on, you are going to experience hell. My name is Emily. I work as a receptionist at a certain hotel and am 25 years old. Last year, I married him, Tom, my boss at work. I found out I was pregnant at the beginning of this year and resigned from the company. Everyone congratulated me as I left my warm and comfortable workplace. Since then, I have been doing my best with housework and childcare as a full-time housewife. Our newborn son cries a lot at night and isn't good at drinking milk. Although we were in chaos with our first-time parenting, Tom supported us devotedly. Then, Tom changed abruptly one day. Even though he used to be proactive in housework and taking care of the child, something about him has been off lately. I have a company social event again today, so I don't need dinner. That's quite often. I understand if it's for business development, but it seems tough just for being a head waiter. People with positions, even in different departments, have to communicate. I'm off. When I was working, there weren't weekly drinking parties like this, especially since he was something like a restaurant department manager. Even the monthly managerial meetings took place during working hours. Him participating in a drinking party after work had never happened, even when our son was born. Nevertheless, such a lifestyle has become the norm recently. I had convinced myself that various internal circumstances must have changed since my time. However, a certain action by Tom started to breed distrust in me. I'm home. How about a bath? Welcome back. It's ready. Tom, who came back from the drinking party, was in a surprisingly good mood and somehow seemed sober, which made me suspicious. Tom, you usually can't handle alcohol, but you seem fine today. Oh yeah, I didn't have to drink much this time. Tom seemed quite flustered by my casual comment. As I approached him, I noticed another surprising thing. Instead of the smell of alcohol, there was a scent of women's perfume. You usually have a drink with appetizers as soon as you get home, right? Today, the sales manager wasn't sitting next to me. Thanks to that, stop worrying about every little thing. You just need to concern yourself with the house. When people lie, they often unknowingly express their dishonesty through various behaviors, such as using negative words or speaking faster. Tom often adopted a rough attitude. Hearing his words, I instantaneously sensed that he was doing something guilty. That's what I picked up on. He continued to go to drinking parties, and it became more common for him to return home in the early morning. Tom is hiding something from me. I was convinced of this when Tom, who had come home in the early morning, went to work without sleeping. This is Tom's phone. He unusually left his mobile phone on the sofa and left, and I found it. While hesitating whether to deliver it to him, Tom, who had realized he forgot it, came back home. Seeing me holding his mobile, he snatched it away with a disgusted expression. Why are you touching my phone without permission? I just left it there because I was debating whether to return it to you or not. Shut up. You didn't look inside it, did you? While stowing away his phone into his chest pocket. His contemptuous glare at me turned my suspicion into certainty. He has something on his phone he can't show, thinking it would be problematic if I did. This might be the time to confront him. However, if this is about another woman, confronting him here and now, risking the evidence being deleted, would not be wise. I didn't look. I wouldn't stoop to such a despicable act. What's with that tone? Who do you think is feeding you? Know your place. Trying to make his point through force, Tom slammed his bag onto the desk. With the sound and his verbal abuse, he's trying to cow me to assert dominance through force. If I were alone, I'd talk back and storm out of the house right now. But that's not an option at the moment. Despite having our precious son, doing something like that, who knows what could happen next. For now, I'll endure. I'll endure and expose Tom's wrongdoings. Clenching my fists tightly, I was desperate to suppress my anger with the pain. As if sensing my feelings, our son, who had been sleeping in the other room, woke up, probably realizing I wasn't there. His cries calling desperately for me sounded from the other room. Shut him up already. My body involuntarily jolted at his irate yelling, and I shrank back seeing his almost raised fist and his aggressive demeanor. When did our relationship come to this? There was nothing like this when we first got married. But reflecting upon it more deeply, perhaps I was just blind. I somewhat feel that his actions have always revealed this side of him. Since early in our marriage, clean every time after using the toilet, never let dishes pile up in the sink, finish all the washing up, including scrubbing pots, before eating. The dishes Tom ate from, the laundry, all were left to me to deal with. If shoes got dirty, noticing and cleaning them myself was expected. Recalling such directives and our resultant arguments, the amount of housework, which increased even more than when I lived at my parents' house, plus our son's childcare, has become overwhelming. In the beginning, Tom, who used to help me, has now come to this. What did I get married for again? Amidst an environment where it feels like I'm doing more housework than a maid. This treatment came just as I was reaching my limits. My mental state had reached its limit, and I wanted to divorce him. I wanted to take my son and run away from this house right now. Just as I was driven by such thoughts, a turning point came. Emily, what is this? It was about a month since I started probing into Tom's personal matters. Having just put my son to sleep and finally having some time to myself, Tom showed me a certain picture when I was taking a breather. There it was, a snapshot of a cheerful tea time with former colleagues who had been friendly to me at my previous job. What are you doing leisurely outside while I'm at work? I finished the housework, so I'm just letting off some steam by having tea. What's wrong with that? Where does this money come from? You've wasted the living expenses I've given you. Tom probably misunderstood that I had arbitrarily used the household money for things other than home expenses. Without listening to me, he started yelling loudly. At that moment, our supposed-to-be sleeping son woke up, crying loudly. The atmosphere in the house quickly turned intense. Shut up! Stop that damn crying! Despite our son crying in another room, Tom, trying to go there and yell at him. The moment I thought I must protect my son, I stood in front of the door, blocking Tom's way with a determined stance. With a strong will not to let him through, I stared at him down. Get out of the way. No, I won't move. Do you realize what you're trying to do? The one you're trying to yell at is a baby, just born. Isn't it insane to try to yell at such a little baby? It seems that my eyes, which had been blind, had opened over these few days of events. There won't be a happy future for my son or me if I stay with this man. I want to leave right now. I have more than enough material to leave. Now all I need to do is make enough money to do so. I can't raise my son alone yet. I need to find a job first. I have to look for it separately from my previous job, so Tom won't find out. While I was thinking about such things, Tom forcefully pushed me aside, brutally opened the door, left it open, and spoke with a cold tone. Get out. A wife who can't pay respect to her husband like that is not needed by me. Pack your things right now and leave this place. Wait, what are you saying? Don't say something unreasonable. Just get out. You're an eyesore, you worm. After using my money at your leisure. What's with that arrogant way of speaking? Who do you think you are? If you can talk back like that, I have no use for you anymore. Take the kid and get lost quickly. Tom, who hurled harsh words at me, roughly pushed my belongings and our crying son towards me and threw me out of the entrance. The door was locked and chained, and it was entirely impossible to return home. I found myself stranded on the streets with my newborn son. In the silent back alley late at night, only my son's sad cries echoed. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Because I was such a failure as a parent. I'm truly sorry for making you go through this hardship. Wary of being reported by local residents, I hurriedly entered the park, tightly holding my son, whose tiny body was desperately seeking love. Ensuring he didn't get cold, I stayed close to signal my presence. Apologizing over and over, I vowed to protect this child at all costs. Once the sun rose, I planned to seek help at the city hall or somewhere else. Just as I thought that, as if to add insult to injury, it began to rain. Having brought neither an umbrella nor anything else, I held my son tightly to prevent him from the rain, shedding tears as freely as the falling drops. If I had cut ties with Tom earlier, if I had divorced him before this child was born, if I had been a stronger woman, none of this would have happened. I was despairing amidst this remorseful situation from which there was no escape. What happened? What are you doing here at this hour? Despite it being past 3 a.m., an elegant-looking elderly man offered his umbrella to protect my son and me from the rain. What happened, bringing such a little child out here? The unknown elderly man must live in the luxurious house in front of the park. He came to check on us, worried after hearing the consistent crying of a child. While it was suspicious to be approached at this hour, something about the elderly man evoked a feeling of nostalgia in me. As I shared my harsh experiences with him, he silently placed his towel over my head, gently wiping my hair. Come to my house. There are female servants there who can take care of you. Spending the night here would be too pitiful for the baby. His gentle tone and compassion unleashed an unending flow of tears. I decided to accept his invitation and, with my sobbing son in tow, entered his home. There, a shocking truth would be revealed, leaving me astounded. Leave the rest to me. I nodded firmly to his words, deciding to rest for the moment. The servants working in his house were kind, happily taking care of my son. Thanks to them, I was able to sleep soundly for the first time in a while, waking up past noon. A female servant noticed my awakening and informed me that my phone had been ringing incessantly. They had refrained from waking me, considerately allowing me to rest, expressing gratitude for their kindness. I checked my call history to find, predictably, messages from Tom. Presumably, he was incapable of preparing breakfast without me and demanding I return immediately. His actions exemplified a useless husband, leaving me regretting what I ever saw in such a man. I didn't want to return, but ignoring him and potentially involving the police would be more troublesome. Deciding to talk to Tom, I took my son and went home once. From here began the fierce battle between Tom and me. You, where the hell have you been until now? No breakfast prepared, the house is a mess. After such a trivial argument last night, to stubbornly stay out until morning. Where the hell have you been, you idiot? Though I wanted to retort, I'm right here, aren't I? I swallowed the sharp words. There's no way I can get in when you've locked it, right? And I have no way of knowing about there being no breakfast. If you regret not being able to prepare breakfast for yourself, you shouldn't have acted in a way that drove me out. Unlike me, you're smart, aren't you? Usually, he belittled me. If he was as smart as he said, he would have created a situation that wouldn't have ended up like this. In the end, the one who suffered was himself. He should realize it's all his own fault. As I responded with words meant to fuel his emotions, Tom's temples twitched. I can't take it anymore. I can't go on with you. Perhaps his anger had peaked. I don't know when he prepared it. But Tom pulled a piece of paper from his room and slammed it on the living room table. Divorce? I never want to see your face again. Placed there was a divorce notice, stamped with Tom's name and seal. He probably thought I would panic upon seeing it. He thought he'd make me apologize. The thoughts inside my heart seemingly leaked into my expressions. But I wouldn't play into his hands. I took a ballpoint pen and my seal from a nearby shelf, and signed without hesitation. He understood. Aren't you unusually obedient? Even though you, unemployed and without parents, have nowhere to go, LOL. What are you going to do? LOL. Contrary to his bluster, cold sweat faintly appeared on his forehead, and the twitching corner of his mouth along with his expression spoke volumes. Foolish man. Internally despising him, I quickly gathered the rest of my belongings. Giving me the silent treatment? Well, whatever. This feels refreshing, LOL. While I packed, ignoring his words, Tom, who seemed nonchalant, delivered the final blow. Being with you makes me poor. Let's divorce, LOL. I'll give you the kid, pay me $800,000, LOL. Whether it was because I showed no sign of agitation, Tom demanded an absurd amount of money. I was utterly appalled internally. Tom tried to shake me with money, attempting to manipulate my emotions. If it turned into a verbal fight, he could take advantage, dominating and forcing me into submission. He would then force me to live an even more restricted life, causing me distress while he enjoyed his own carefree leisure. Reading Tom's transparent thoughts, I turned back with a full-faced smile and responded affirmatively without hesitation. You okay? Hearing that, Tom visibly shook, becoming flustered and bewildered. Do you understand? It's $8 million. $8 million? There's no way you can prepare such a huge amount. Is that all you wanted to say? I'll transfer it at the end of this month. Please handle the procedures afterward. Goodbye. Thus, Tom and my divorce was settled. I transferred a substantial sum of $8 million to his account, as he requested. I had noticed his affair and gathered evidence, but hadn't thought about demanding compensation from him. That's because I intended to show him a hell beyond retrieving money. 2 weeks later, I woke up in the morning to find numerous frantic calls from Tom on my phone. The time had finally come. Tom would surely call again. Sure enough, I received an incoming call from him. I didn't answer the first time, and even when I did on the second time, I immediately hung up. What the hell do you think you're doing? Are you messing with me? If I answered on the first ring, he would have maintained his composure, and the conversation would have progressed smoothly. My second action was intended to work him. If he remained somewhat rational, my plan would be ruined. It was crucial to intentionally annoy the short-tempered Tom and make him lose his cool. So, the third time was the charm. I deliberately didn't initiate the conversation. I needed to speak while keeping him irritated, to keep myself in a dominant position. This situation, where all the machinations were proceeding according to my plan, felt incredibly satisfying, and I even felt a sense of superiority. You're as noisy as ever. You know, I can adjust the volume on my phone, so I can hear you even if you don't shout. What do you want? I'm extremely busy, you know? So saying, I elegantly sipped my tea and flipped through a magazine while speaking. The claim of being busy was a lie. Currently, I'm enjoying a carefree holiday while raising my son. My talk is nothing more than smooth talk, to make it seem like I find my real-life interactions with him to be a waste of time because I'm so fulfilled. You did it, didn't you? What have you done? What are you talking about? I haven't done anything. What a lie. In reality, I took everything away from Tom. His wife, his job, his money, and his family. I ripped it all away from him. No, you're the only one who can do such a thing. Give me back everything. You liar. Tom is loudly crying over the phone, yelling in agony. This is extremely pleasurable, and I'm inwardly doubled over in laughter. Why don't you try telling me what I did? It seems I've been quite forgetful lately, so I don't remember. Unlike him who's falling into hell, I'm enjoying my tea time while reading a magazine as always. Speaking in a barely audible voice, he told me the following. Soon after divorcing me, Tom remarried his current wife. Of course, I had found out that she was the one he had an affair with while married to me. And it was also confirmed that she was the daughter of a president of a client company. Although she was such a woman, it seems that Tom had hidden the fact that he was already married. Then, on the day he suggested divorce to me, it became clear that she was pregnant. He needed to divorce me quickly and marry her, because this president's daughter was a key partner with the biggest contract among the clients. So, Tom hurriedly pressured me, leading to the divorce. He successfully divorced me as planned, but this was just the beginning of the tragedy. First, today, he said he was divorced by his wife and kicked out of his home. The reason was that it had been revealed that he had previously been married to me. Furthermore, learning that I also have a child, she was furious. She declared a divorce and a claim for compensation. And in his panic and overt emotion, Tom lashed out at his wife. He caused such a ruckus that even his parents-in-law had to intervene, physically and mentally tormenting his wife to the point that it was reported to his workplace. He was told that they couldn't contract with his place of employment and he was fired from the hotel, essentially being clearly told, "We'll choose the client over you." In one day, he lost both his wife and job. Moreover, from that loss, he had to put all of the $8 million received from me into compensation and damages to the company, leaving him broke. The losses to the company were apparently not covered by the $8 million, so he had to drain all of his savings. Why does she know about my previous marriage? The only one who would do such a thing is you. You took my happiness from me. Tom, lashing out in desperation. I closed the magazine I was reading and decided to confront him. His unrepentant demeanor really got under my skin. I had intended to just listen and then cut him off. But he hasn't yet reflected on his malicious actions, even after all this. He doesn't think it's just desserts. I couldn't stand his attitude. Took happiness away. Everything that happens is karma from your own actions. Cheating while you were with me, being abusive to your wife leading to divorce, and being fired from the company all are results of your own bad actions. What the hell? Despite being from a lower status than me, you dare preach to me? You must be in a situation where you can't even afford to raise a kid on your own. That's why you have to live such a busy life, isn't it? This must be your punishment for dumping me. Assuming that I am working from dawn to dusk is likely his misunderstanding. While lifting the magazine that was in front of me, I internally mock him, thinking, is this what you call busy? I told him sarcastically, yet with refined words. Hey, I was busy reading a beauty magazine until now, but I'm done. Now I'm going to enjoy my second cup of tea and maybe do some knitting. Huh? How busy is that? Are you making fun of me? Even over the phone, I could imagine his face turning bright red, becoming like a boiled octopus. Unable to contain my amusement at the ridiculous sight, I let out a cheerful laugh, which seemed to irritate him further. His screams were non-stop. However, even that was pleasant to me, having been unable to talk back to him before. Now I had him spinning in the palm of my hand with such ease. Where are you? This can't be settled over a phone call. I'll go to your house right now. You can come, but you'll be turned away. I'll let the servants know that you're an outsider and absolutely cannot be allowed in. Servants? That's right. I'm living in a mansion now with my father. Saying that, I switched to a video call, presenting him with a surprising view. Chairman, what was displayed was the elderly man who had helped me. The chairman of his workplace. He was my father. Hello, Tom. Is this our first meeting? I'm Emily's father. Matt Hua, father, what does this mean, chairman? I totally don't understand. Tom, who had been told I had no father, was clearly shaken. Even though I couldn't see his face, I could envision his bewildered state. Actually, I divorced Emily's mother when she was pregnant with her. Mother and father apparently had a romance that crossed societal boundaries. Father was the heir to a financial conglomerate, while mother was an ordinary citizen. A child born into a household of an average salaryman and office lady. Grandma did not approve of father's marriage to mother, so much so that the entire family was against it. Father was disowned, losing all ties, and was unable to get the marriage approved no matter what he tried. Seeing this, mother proposed a separation, giving birth to me under the condition that I would be legally recognized by him. They didn't want to tarnish the conglomerate's name. So while they didn't allow the marriage, they did recognize the child. Monthly child support was apparently provided. Your mother passed away quite some time ago. I truly wanted to meet Emily and her siblings, but she was taught that I didn't exist in this world. Telling a young child that her father isn't around due to such circumstances would be too cruel. And last year, my mother passed away. It seems mother had asked father to look after me, and he had been watching over me from the shadows. I knew you got married because I heard about it at the company. But I was genuinely shocked to see Emily standing outside the house, completely drenched that day. Were you under the chairman's care that day? Yes. My father helped us when we were soaked from the rain. As I glared at him with intense eyes, my father gently placed his hand on my back, supporting me. You said I had no financial power, right? What a shame. I've taken over my father's company and now have a total asset value of $13 billion. I'm not a narrow-minded person who fusses over $8 million. That's the whole story. The reason I wasn't shaken by the large sum of $800 million that day was because my father had made this proposal after helping us. The woman in that photo is the daughter of an acquaintance of mine. I'll explain the situation to the other party and ask them to divorce right away. They must be understanding people. Don't worry about the money. I'll get everything back for you. Emily, prioritize yourself and our child. She's the precious memento your mother left behind. I won't let you be unhappy. You can rest assured. They must be understanding people. Don't worry about the money. I'll get everything back for you. Emily, prioritize yourself and our child. She's the precious memento your mother left behind. I won't let you be unhappy. You can rest assured. With those words from my father, I readily accepted the divorce from him. And I was able to transfer the stated amount without any hesitation. Then, all this time, you were playfully rolled around in our hands. Have you finally realized? You fool! It's laughable that you think you're smart. Saying that with a snort, he seemed defeated and didn't respond. He seemed cornered. Maybe he just realized that he had no choice but to back down from this situation. And so, the fierce dispute with him ended. Tom never interfered with us again. Several years later, my son entered elementary school. Surrounded by my father and son as usual, I led a fulfilling life, both in work and in private. The staff also treated us kindly, and I finally felt that I had attained the warmth of a family.
If you can't have kids and are useless, let's divorce, LOL. Also, pay me $5 million in property settlement. Mike, with an unyielding, condescending attitude even on the brink of divorce. Upon hearing his words, I triumphantly handed him the already filled-out divorce papers. Go. You're well prepared, aren't you? Mike snatched the divorce papers and began to fill them out with a gleeful expression. Finally, my marriage with this man is coming to an end. I couldn't be happier when thinking about it. Moreover, I have a certain secret that I haven't told Mike. I wonder how he will react when he finds out about this secret. I swear that he would be surprised and panic. Imagining his face, I laughed to myself. My name is Emily, 36 years old. Working part-time, living with my husband, Mike, just the two of us. Mike was my boss at the company I used to work for. My first impression of him was that he was quite unapproachable. And I was even scared to talk to him. However, as we worked together, I found him very easy to talk to. And even enjoyed working with him. Of course, at first, we just had a boss-subordinate relationship. But as we spent more time together, we understood that we were attracted to each other. 1 year after meeting Mike, our relationship had evolved from not just boss and subordinate, but also to lovers. During our relationship, Mike always prioritized me. He took me to places I wanted to go and always brought me to restaurants where we could enjoy delicious meals. Even that would have been enough to make me happy. But Mike never forgot our anniversaries and always surprised me with bouquets and surprises on special days. Thank you, always. I just love seeing your happy face, Emily. Thank you for being with me. While it might sound cheesy to some, I, who was head over heels for Mike, cherished every word from him. After that, we got married following 3 years of dating. Being congratulated by the company's staff, we were at the peak of happiness. I vaguely thought that I wanted to build a calm and enjoyable home with Mike from now on. However, I came to regret knowing Mike's true character. Simply put, Mike's personality only worsened after getting married. Hey, why isn't my dinner ready? Don't slack off on the household chores just because you're working part-time. Have you forgotten the favor of me earning money? After marrying Mike, I quit the company and decided to work part-time at a nearby supermarket. Mike had told me he wanted me to be a full-time housewife, but thinking that being at home all the time would be mentally exhausting, we compromised on me working part-time after a discussion. Sorry. But you said you'd be late this morning. Did I say that, huh? Anyway, get the food ready, quick. Listening to Mike, I hastily prepared dinner. However, I hadn't done the shopping and had to make a meal using leftovers in the fridge. As expected, Mike became angry, shouting, "Don't make me eat this crap." His attitude began to change right after we got married, but it was just a bit selfish, I thought. But as we continued through our marriage, it became apparent that he was becoming increasingly tyrannical towards me. I tried subtly asking how he felt about me, but Mike dodged all my questions. I couldn't help but worry and maybe pressed him too much. Ultimately, he lost his temper and stopped listening to me altogether. And so, we reached the present. At first, I had no idea, but as I thought about various things, I began to wonder if he was angry about that matter. It was the fact that I have a condition that makes it impossible to have children. In fact, we had a bridal checkup before getting married because, of course, we wanted children. However, at that time, it was discovered that I was infertile. I remember being extremely shocked. I'm so sorry. I know you want kids. I'm sorry for being infertile. I desperately strung words together, apologizing to Mike. At that time, I also told him I wanted him to find a new woman. I thought it would make Mike happier. He would always talk, with eyes sparkling, about where he would like to take our children, what he would like them to learn, how he would like to play catch if we had a boy. Seeing Mike like that made the fact that I was infertile even harder. However, there was nothing I could do about the results. I wanted a child with the person I loved, but I thought I had to give up. From now on, it's up to you, Mike. I won't say anything. I braced myself for words of separation from Mike, but his answer was not what I expected. No. I don't want to break up. Huh. I love you, Emily. I surely said I wanted kids, but if it's difficult to have them, it can't be helped. Even so, I want to be with Emily. Just having Emily by my side is enough. We can be together from now on. The moment I heard Mike's words, I felt relieved and tears started flowing. Really? Why would I lie? Listening to his gentle voice, even more tears spilled. However, considering the current situation, it's clear Mike doesn't want to be with me. If he truly loved me, he wouldn't adopt such a harsh attitude. What should I do? He kept whispering sweet nothings before we got married, but were they all lies? To begin with, is Mike really angry because I'm infertile? Unable to talk to Mike, I spent every day in agony. Then one day, I was finally able to ask Mike why his attitude towards me had become so harsh. That day as well, we were arguing as usual. Why haven't you washed the dishes? It's filthy. The TV is also collecting dust, clean it properly. The dishes are fine. This is good enough. Besides, if you have a problem with the dust on the TV, you can clean it yourself. The dishes only had 1 cup left on it that was used a few minutes ago. And I had cleaned the TV, so it was not dirty enough to be complained about. What more am I being asked for? While I usually reluctantly listened to what Mike said, this time I did not feel like it and talked back to him. As I watched his reaction, Mike suddenly slammed his bag on the floor. Then he said something outrageous. What's with that tone? That's why you're infertile. Rebel against me after you can have children. Well, I think it's impossible forever, though. Why? Because of that, infertile. I knew that my rebellion had nothing to do with infertility, but I was very shocked. Why would you say something like that? It's your fault for not silently listening to what I say. Don't make me uncomfortable. Don't talk back to me. Understand? Mike, yelling with spit flying, was many times scarier than usual, and I shrank back. Perhaps realizing I couldn't talk back, Mike sneered at me and returned to the bedroom. Come to think of it, Our bedrooms had been separated just a few months after we got married. The more I think back to Mike's words, the sadder I get, feeling like I am not needed by him. This incident became the catalyst for Mike mercilessly calling me infertile from that day forward. You barely earn any money with your part-time job and you're infertile. What's that about? LOL. Also, you can't do any housework, can you? You don't have to say such things, do you? Before we got married, you accepted it, didn't you? Trying to fight back, all of my claims were just scoffed at. Accepted? Was there such a thing? I've been saying since before we got married that I want children, haven't I? You said being with me was enough. I don't know. Don't make things up. As usual, he doesn't listen to anything I say at all. Perhaps this is Mike's true nature. I spent my days regretting why I hadn't seen through him while we were dating. Such a person being my husband, I don't know when my mind breaks. I thought about divorcing him many times. However, there was a sticking point. It was that I had no money. Although I'm working part-time, I'm not living just on my own earnings. Currently, I'm financially dependent on Mike. Mike also tells me, you can't do anything without me. That was what he said. It seems obvious that if he divorces me, I won't be able to live. Besides, he probably understands that I won't run away no matter how much he verbally abuses me. Our relationship has completely cooled down, and we continue to live parallel lives. He provides money for our home, but as such a life continues. Claiming overtime and working on holidays, Mike spent less time at home. Since that period coincided with the busy season at the company, I thought he was working earnestly, but it seems that was not the case. How did I know? Because I saw Mike's payroll statement. There was no mention of overtime or holiday work pay. And when I checked the account, only the same amount as the payroll statement was transferred. I thought it was a mistake for a moment. But I realized it was unlikely to mistakenly match the payroll statement and the transferred amount at the same time. If overtime and working on holidays are lies, what on earth is Mike doing outside the house? After thinking about various things, I concluded that Mike might be cheating. However, I had no evidence, and honestly, I didn't have the energy to look for it. As a result, I had been tolerating it silently and crying myself to sleep. Whether he knew that or not, Mike continued to hurl verbal abuse at me as usual. The food you make is really terrible. Consider what it's like for me, having to eat this. You used to say it was delicious and ate it. I never said that. Do you have proof? Do you have a recording or something? I've told you not to say arbitrary things. Use your brain. You infertile loser. Being looked down upon, scoffed at, and called infertile. Before I knew it, I had begun to resent myself, who couldn't bear children. Not wanting to encounter families with children, my outings decreased. And I only left the house to go to my part-time job and to shop. I accumulated stress, lived without properly basking in sunlight. My skin became pale, my face aged, and I changed significantly from the energetic person I once was. You're aging more and more, LOL. I'm embarrassed to be married to you. Far from worrying about me, Mike continued to scold me, and my mental state further deteriorated. However, a certain incident would significantly change my marital life with Mike. One day, I couldn't sleep well and was awake late at night. Sipping warm cocoa, I was watching TV, waiting for sleepiness to come. The clock had passed 1 a.m. I always sleep at this time, so the programs on TV were fresh to me. Being awake until late might be a good change of pace. While thinking that and sipping my cocoa, I heard the sound of a key opening the door from the entrance. Had Mike come back? Looking towards the entrance, a seemingly drunk Mike entered the living room. He seemed to be in a good mood, but scowled the moment he saw me. Why are you awake? I can't sleep. Get to bed quickly because you're in the way. You're annoying. He spoke as if spitting the words out and headed to the bathroom to take a bath. However, at that moment, a distinct scent of cosmetics wafted from Mike as he passed by me. In that instant, suspicion that he might be cheating turned into conviction, and I decided to gather evidence and definitely expose his infidelity. I was infuriated, feeling as though evidence of his time with another woman was being flaunted before me. If he's married to me, living with me, he should at least make an effort to hide it a little. He was completely taking me for granted. I'd been made a fool of up till now. I will make him regret cheating and berating me, and I will divorce him. I don't care what becomes of my life. At any rate, I started to want to get away from Mike. From that day on, I searched every place in the house. I went into Mike's bedroom, looked in the closet, inside the bookshelf, inside the smartphone that Mike had used before the current one. However, I couldn't find anything resembling evidence anywhere. Where else should I search? Then, I happened to check the pocket of Mike's suit that caught my eye. Is there something? When I checked the pockets of a few suits hanging there, my fingers hit something hard. When I hesitantly pulled it out, it was a branded lipstick that definitely did not belong to Mike. This couldn't be explained as a mere accident. A woman, likely his affair partner, must have put it there. Firstly, one piece of evidence. I wanted to gather evidence on my own, but somehow I knew it would be impossible. Should I consult a detective agency? But I don't have money, what should I do? After considering various thoughts, I decided to consult a colleague from my part-time job. So far, I haven't been able to talk about my relationship with Mike at my part-time job because I was embarrassed. Everyone happily talked about their families, and I didn't want to put a damper on the conversation. So, I decided to consult the person I was closest to at my part-time job. Sue? Do you have a moment? What's the matter, Emily? The day after finding the lipstick, I decided to confide in Sue, my closest friend at my part-time job. Sue herself had a family and always seemed so happy. Well, it's really hard to say, but... What? You're scaring me. I think my husband might be cheating on me. Cheating? Then I explained what kind of treatment I had received from Mike and the current situation between him and me. I had shown Sue Mike's face before, but since I had never talked about our marital affairs, I was scared of how she would react. After listening to my story, Sue looked down as if she was thinking about something. Then, she slowly opened her mouth. Emily. First, I'm sorry for not saying this until now. I've been hiding something from you. Hiding something. Hiding something. Could it be that Sue is the one having an affair with him? As I braced myself, Sue said something I never expected. Actually. Mike, was it? I saw Mike walking arm in arm with a woman who wasn't you. I took a picture just in case, but I didn't know what was going on at home. And I didn't want to come between you two, so I couldn't tell you. Sue said that and showed me a photo. Indeed, there was Mike and a woman I didn't know in it. It's Mike. Yeah. An awkward atmosphere enveloped the room. This would be decisive evidence of infidelity. I also have about 3 more pictures. I took pictures of them entering the hotel, too. I didn't know Emily was going through such a hard time. I'm really sorry. Sue, it's not your fault. Thank you. Thank you for talking to me. After that, I received and checked the photos from Sue. Surely, Mike was in the pictures as expected. Thank you for the photos. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know, okay? Having such a reliable person nearby, I might be lucky. I thanked Sue again and left the workplace. On the way home, I stopped by the city hall and picked up divorce papers. All that's left is to hand over the divorce papers and get divorced. But when should I hand them over? Deciding to divorce is fine, but I still have a fear of Mike. I don't know what will happen if I say I want a divorce. When I got home, I pondered while looking at the divorce papers. Then, the phone rang. When I looked at the caller ID, my father's name was displayed. It was too unusual for my father to call, so I answered the phone right away. Hello? Oh. Emily. It's been a while. How are you? Well, yeah. Anyway, what's up? Calling out of the blue like this? Well, actually, I was thinking of transferring the assets to you. That's so sudden. Actually, my parents used to run a company and have a lot of assets. I had been told a while ago that those assets would be mine someday. Sorry. Your mom and I want to get the paperwork done while we're still healthy. I see. So, about those assets. When we calculated them, they came out to $10 million. $10 million. She couldn't believe her ears. Even though they had been running a company, she never thought that such a huge sum of money, 10 million, would be near her. Can I really have it? Of course. So, when can you come to process the paperwork? While bewildered, she looked at the calendar. However, at that moment, a certain idea struck her. It might be easier to handle the property division if she proceeded with it after divorcing Mike. Moreover, she didn't want Mike to take away the assets. She hadn't talked to Mike about the assets and probably wouldn't be held back. She conveyed to her father that she intended to divorce Mike. You're going to divorce Mike? Well, I won't say anything if it's your decision, Emily. If something happens, tell me immediately. You can always come back home. Thank you. Receiving affirmative words from her father, she decided to propose a divorce today. Even if something happened, she had a strong ally. It should work out somehow. Hours later. The time had passed by 11 p.m. The living room door opened, and Mike came home. He was in the highest spirits she had ever seen, even humming a tune. Welcome home. You're early today. The date hasn't changed yet. Mike didn't even say hello and threw his bag and jacket onto the sofa. Emily. Let's divorce. Divorce. She could not have imagined that Mike would propose a divorce. I'll divorce an incompetent who can't even have a kid. Pay 5 million for property division. She had been constantly told she was useless. But she didn't remember being asked for property division. That's exactly what I want to claim. Suddenly feeling detached by Mike's words, she thrust out the filled-out divorce papers that were on the table. Fine. Here, divorce papers. Go. You're well prepared, aren't you? Mike happily snatched the divorce papers and began filling out his portion. Man, I can finally get away from you, LOL. I'm so happy. Oh, really? Mike showed a smile to her for the first time in a while. The next day, after submitting the divorce papers, I headed to my parents' house. Although her parents' house and my part-time job were a bit far apart, it was not impossible to commute. I thought she would take advantage of their kindness until I settled down. My parents, whom I hadn't seen for a while, welcomed her warmly. Are you okay? You look pale. Do I? Take a good rest. If the part-time job seems too much, I think it's okay to take a break. Thank you. The parents' home, after a long time, was indeed comfortable. I decided to take a leisurely rest, taking their advice. 2 days later, when I returned from her part-time job and looked at her smartphone, there were numerous missed call notifications. Roughly about 30. The caller was Mike. They came about every 5 minutes, and it was frightening. He had berated her tremendously up to now. What could he possibly want all of a sudden? Did he want to complain to me so much that he'd call? Thinking to ignore it and about to put away my smartphone, another call came from Mike. Hello? What do you want? Emily. Please, come back home quickly. Huh? Things aren't going well with your affair partner? Why? How do you know about that? He seemed to think I was still unaware of his affair. I almost laughed at Mike's ludicrously surprised voice. Did you think I didn't know? If you know, that makes things easier. That woman, she can't do any housework. She doesn't cook, and she barely cleans. Ever since we started living together, she has done nothing but make selfish demands. What should I do? I don't care. Mike started to ask me to come back without even apologizing for his affair. Why not? We've been living together for years, haven't we? Helping each other in times like this is what being a married couple is, isn't it? Huh? Married couple? We're divorced, aren't we? Besides, you've always mocked me, called me infertile. Don't think you can just turn the tables the moment you realize your affair partner is useless. Taking advantage of the distance provided by the phone, I let out everything I had been holding back. You used to say that being with me was enough. So why did you get mad about not being able to have kids? Why did you have an affair? What was the reason for all the times you've ridiculed me? Come on, answer me. That is. Come on. Why are you silent now? Where did all your bravado go? Have nothing to say? You're really a pathetic man. I feel like an idiot for not seeing through you before we got married. By the way, I'm going to be requesting asset distribution, so be prepared." When I mentioned the asset distribution, Mike's attitude suddenly changed. "Asset distribution? There's no reason for you to claim anything from me. You just stay silent and let me say whatever I want. Why are you so composed anyway? You can't live without me. You don't even have money. Can't live. Don't have money. When it comes to money, it seems likely that Mike himself doesn't have any. Moreover, I have assets. I'm not particularly in trouble with money. I've already divorced, so I might as well say it." With that thought, I spoke to Mike about the current situation. "You know, Mike, it might seem like I have no money, but actually, I have assets that were transferred to me from my parents. 10 million. 10 million. I could have inherited it before the divorce, but I didn't want to share assets with you. So, I decided to go through the procedure after the divorce." Wait a minute. I didn't hear anything about assets. That's because I didn't tell you. Mike was so shocked that it was apparent even over the phone. Wait a minute, and I didn't hear, he repeats, but it's not at all clear what he wants to talk about. Anyway, we are divorced. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. I don't need you to worry about money, thanks. So, just wait for a contact from the lawyer. Hey. Wait. Mike was saying something on the other end of the phone, but there's nothing more for me to say. I hung up the phone and left my smartphone aside. After that, I requested a lawyer and claimed asset division from Mike. Since I had not taken evidence of his verbal abuse, it became an asset division amount only for the affair. But I was able to get him to pay more than I thought, which was good. After making the request, I left it entirely to the lawyer. So I don't know what's actually happening with Mike. However, Mike, who came to the lawyer's office, seemed to be quite worn out. Whether he's significantly struggling with his current life or doesn't have the money to pay for the asset division. I don't know his feelings, but I think I want him to struggle to do whatever he wants until now. Now I have quit my part-time job and am working as a temp at a company near my parents' house. Because Mike knows where I worked part-time, I don't know when he might confront me there. When I quit, I remember being very encouraged by receiving kind words from Sue. "If you have any troubles, just tell me. I'll go right away." For many years, I was tossed around by a man named Mike and couldn't live my own life. But from now on, I want to live as I please. First, I'll save money, and maybe take my family and Sue on a trip. Thinking about such things, I was devoted to my job every day. I got the chocolate cake for you, Emily. You like chocolate, right? Mom, if you eat that you'll die. Catherine quickly switched the cake between Tom and me. Hesitantly, I took a bite of the cake. Catherine began to eat her cake as well. As Tom proudly spoke about how he had reserved this cake a month in advance, and how delicious the crushed cookies on top were, he suddenly began to choke. Tom's face turned red in an instant. He seemed to have difficulty breathing, began frothing at the mouth and shaking, and then collapsed to the floor. My name is Emily. I'm 36 years old and work for a food inspection company. I live with my husband, who is 2 years older than me, and our 7-year-old daughter, Catherine. I met Tom, my husband, in a college club. We began dating after we both started working, and we got married 2 years later. Catherine was born the year after we got married. Catherine's development was slow, and she only started walking at the age of 2. We were deeply concerned and took her to many hospitals, but they found no abnormalities. Every hospital said, "There are individual differences, let's see how it goes." At first, Tom was very worried, but he lost interest in Catherine when she didn't start talking or walking. Karen, my mother-in-law, deemed Catherine as a disabled child and detested her, never holding her. Only my father-in-law cared for Catherine, always smiling at her and saying that she was a unique and good child. I was very grateful for that. Before our marriage, Tom was very kind. But after Catherine was born, he was always irritable at home. When something displeased him, he would slam the table, stomp the floor, and generally make loud noises. Every time he did that, I would tense up and shrink back. Tom's behavior at home stressed me out, leading to menstrual irregularities and then menopause, making me unable to have more children. I covered myself with the futon and cried a lot. After that, Tom became even more hostile towards me, nitpicking my cleaning, cooking, and even the way I folded laundry. Every time he complained, he would make a loud noise by slamming the table or setting down his bowl roughly. So I would just apologize in fear. However, Catherine would watch Tom's rough behavior with a curious expression, and never seemed to be scared or cry. Tom would look at her as if she was something eerie. Catherine may not speak, but she learned to read very early on and was always engrossed in books. By the time she was in the older class at nursery school, she was into books with illustrations and texts suitable for children, and I believe she understood some Latin. When it was time for Catherine to go to elementary school, she was recommended for a support class because of her lack of speaking. When I consulted Tom about this, he became furious. "Are you kidding me? Why does my child need a support class?" Tom slammed a cup onto the table. I could only shrink back in fear. "Anyway, you figure it out. I won't accept such a disgraceful thing." Stomping heavily, Tom headed towards the bedroom. As I was holding my head in despair, Catherine rubbed my back with her small hand. "Thank you." Crying, I hugged Catherine. "Catherine, you've done nothing wrong." The next day, I received a call from Karen. "Do you intend to send my grandchild to such a class? If the neighbors find out, I'll be too embarrassed to walk outside. If that happens, it's all your fault." Karen said what she wanted to say and hung up. Tom and Karen weren't really concerned about Catherine. They only cared about how they were perceived by others. After consulting with various local advisors, school teachers, and government officials of the city, Catherine was allowed to attend a regular class instead of a support class. Everyone in the support class, from the students to the parents and the teachers, were kind-hearted. I thought the support class suited Catherine better. I could tell by looking at Tom, and Karen would strongly oppose the idea of me suggesting Catherine go to the support class, so I couldn't bring it up. When Catherine started attending elementary school and I had some free time, the company where I used to work part-time approached me about full-time employment. The job was enjoyable and fulfilling. Compared to the stifling environment at home, it felt good to be needed and relied upon. I decided to consult with Tom about it. As expected, he hesitated. "The company I'm with has offered me a full-time position. I really want to work full-time if possible." Tom crossed his arms in a condescending manner. "You better take care of the house just like you've been doing, or even better. But I'll need your help with some things." Tom widened his eyes and banged the table. "Housework is the wife's job, isn't it? It's absurd to ask me for help." After thinking for a moment, Tom smirked. "Fine, I'll ask my mom to handle things at home." I was shocked. I couldn't believe the disagreeable Karen would come to our house. In the end, Tom gave a spare key to Karen, and she started visiting our house almost every day. Whenever Karen came over, she'd be full of snide remarks. "This place is a mess." Poor Tom. How were you raised to clean like this? I started being even more careful with my housework since Karen began visiting. Yet she always found something to complain about, nitpicking at everything. I endured this bullying for a few weeks, but eventually couldn't take it anymore and told Karen that she didn't need to visit since I'd handle things. Reluctantly, Karen agreed and stopped coming. However, just when I thought things had settled down, Tom started frequently staying at his parents' house. Tom always loved his childhood home and visited often, but now it became even more frequent. Sometime later, as Catherine was entering her second year of elementary school, my father-in-law, who was always healthy and the only one kind to Catherine, suddenly passed away. At the funeral, what puzzled me was seeing Tom and Karen occasionally glancing at each other and laughing. Weren't they sad? While I never really felt that the father-in-law and Karen were close, seeing the bereaved laugh during the funeral felt out of place. With my father-in-law gone, there was no one left to support Catherine. I was filled with anxiety. Having juggled housework, childcare, and my job caught up with me, and I fell ill with a fever. I called Tom, who had been spending most of his time at his parents' house, to ask if he could help with meals, but he curtly refused. Even when my mother was ill, she never asked my father to do anything. I don't want to catch what you have. I'll be staying at my parents' house for a while. After saying this, Tom hung up and didn't return home for a week. As my health improved and work became busier, I was offered a promotion. The company wanted to appoint me as a department head. While the offer made me happy, I was also aware of the increased responsibilities at home. I consulted Tom, but as expected, he insisted I maintain my housework duties. Moreover, he looked at me with a mocking expression. Do you really think you can handle a role like department head? That title would put you on par with me. Tom abruptly left the table and went to the bedroom. The next day, Karen visited our house again. Tom mentioned it. He said the house is a mess because you're not focused on housework. Karen quickly entered the house and started to check everything around. From the way the window glass was wiped, to the way the laundry was folded, to the water stains in the bathroom. I was made to redo all of them. Often, when Karen came over and started to complain to me, Catherine began to speak to Karen. Catherine approached Karen with a serious look on her face. Emily, what do you think are the 4 major elements of happiness? What do you mean by happiness hormones? Taken aback by Catherine's rapid-fire questions, Karen looked puzzled. Perhaps Karen hadn't heard Catherine's voice in a while. Oh dear, you can speak normally. Answer my previous question. Karen tilted her head, possibly not understanding the question at all. Oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, endorphin. Karen looked even more confused and anxiously looked at me. These are neurotransmitters, mainly secreted from the pituitary gland in the brain. Lately, Catherine had been reading a lot of medical books. Karen listened to Catherine's explanation, completely astounded. Catherine continued to passionately discuss the relationship between neurotransmitters and illnesses, as well as substances related to sleep. Overwhelmed by Catherine's focus, Karen finally went home exhausted. Thankfully, that day went by without any nagging. On my birthday, Tom, returning from a business trip, bought a birthday cake. This was the first time I received something from Tom since we got married, even though he always gave souvenirs to Karen during his business trips and gifted her with designer scarves, wallets, and bags on her birthdays. He never bought anything for Catherine and me. I was shocked and couldn't fathom Tom's sudden gesture. As I stood there, stunned, Tom held up the cake box to show me. Thank you for everything. I love you. I'll put this in the fridge for now. Let's eat it later. Tom's cheesy words gave me goosebumps. Catherine, seemingly displeased about something, took a bottle of mineral water from the fridge, glanced at the cake, and went to her room. Catherine remained in her room, so Tom and I had dinner together. Throughout the meal, Tom kept showering me with these cheesy compliments. I'm sorry for always leaving the household chores to you. From now on, I'll help out a bit too. Okay, thank you. Though I found Tom's words creepy, I didn't want to upset him, so I just played along. As I was clearing the dishes after dinner, Tom took the cake box out of the fridge. When I was about to get plates and a knife ready, Tom insisted I sit down. It's okay, I'll handle it. Tom sliced the cake and brought it to the table. Honestly, I found Tom's actions creepy. I chose your favorite chocolate cake. You like chocolate, right? I'll go get Catherine. Wait a moment. I rushed to Catherine's room. Catherine seemed to be searching for something on the old computer I no longer used. Mom, you shouldn't eat that cake. What do you mean? Just trust me right now. Catherine looked at me with a desperate expression. I had never seen her so concerned before. I decided to trust Catherine. Catherine and I returned to the living room together. Shall we eat? Hey, there's no fork. Normally, I would head to the kitchen immediately, but I couldn't move because Catherine was tightly holding on to my clothes. Oh, I forgot, I'll get it now. Tom cheerfully left the table. Then, Catherine whispered to me, Mom, if you eat it, you'll die. Catherine quickly switched mine and Tom's cakes. Tom, holding a fork, returned and began to eat the cake in front of him. It's delicious, Emily should eat too. It's made by a famous pastry chef. Hesitantly, I started eating the cake. Catherine also began to eat her cake. As Tom proudly talked about how he reserved this cake a month ago, and how delicious the crushed cookies on top were, he suddenly began to suffer. Tom's face turned increasingly red, his breathing became labored. He started frothing at the mouth, shivering, and then collapsed on the floor. It seemed like an anaphylactic shock from an allergy. Both Tom and I have a peanuts allergy, so there's no way it could contain peanuts. Confused and rooted to the spot, Catherine spoke to me in a calm voice. Mom, call an ambulance. Catherine handed me her smartphone. Coming back to my senses, I called an ambulance. Catherine placed Tom on his side and asked me to strongly pat his back. As I did as I was told, Tom spat out the cake he had eaten. Then, it seemed like Tom's breathing eased a bit. Tom, appearing to be in and out of consciousness, was muttering peanuts, peanuts. Even inside the ambulance, he was muttering. So the paramedic asked me to stay by his side and keep looking up. I sat beside Tom as instructed. Tom, who received treatment at the hospital, managed to survive. Tom had to be hospitalized for several days as a precaution. How did Catherine know something life-threatening was about to happen? Filled with wonder, I completed the hospital procedures and returned home. As soon as I got home, Catherine showed me a snack bag she took out from the trash bin. Dad threw it in the kitchen trash bin. It was a packaging bag for cookies made with peanuts and flour. The cake box that Dad bought had a half-peeled sticker on it. Catherine saw an unfamiliar snack packaging in the kitchen trash, so she looked it up online. She discovered that the snack contained peanuts and warned me about it. I still can't believe that the crushed cookies on the cake were actually crumbled peanuts cookies. Recalling Catherine's warning, Mom, if you eat it, you'll die. I trembled. If Catherine hadn't been alert, I would have been the one eating that cake. The mere thought of being in that hospital bed myself sent shivers down my spine. Did Tom actually try to take my life by tampering with the cake? I reached for my phone, preparing to make a call. I have to report this to the police right away. I think it's better if you don't. Why not? Dad was the one who collapsed. If you report it, the police might suspect you. My vision went black at Catherine's words. Indeed, what Catherine said made sense. Reporting to the police might just make me a prime suspect. I felt a wave of despair, wondering what I should do. Mom, don't worry. I'll handle it. Catherine went to Tom's study to search for something. Tom had always told us to never enter his study, and I rarely ever did. Catherine opened a drawer and began flipping through a notebook. Dad is meticulous. He must have left some notes. Catherine stopped flipping and showed me the notebook. There was something shocking written in it. My father-in-law had also fallen victim in a similar manner. The notebook had entries like peanuts cookies, crush and pinch, and mix with sprinkles. Furthermore, Karen was also involved in this terrifying plot. The two were conspiring together. At the end of the page, it was written, "Next is Emily's birthday." I involuntarily gripped the notebook tightly. It's okay. Catherine struggled to speak, addressing me. I realized at this moment that I was trembling more with anger than fear. To think they would target my life after my father-in-law. I vowed internally, I'll never forgive Tom and Karen. Hey, this notebook can be evidence, right? Catherine sadly, she shook her head. Unfortunately, no. If they say it's just a written fantasy, then it's over. Besides, Grandpa's body is already buried. It's hard to investigate. I looked down, deep in thought. You're right. Without concrete evidence, they can easily wriggle their way out. She squeezed my hand tightly. I'll find the evidence. I promise to protect you, Mom. Let's send those two to prison. Catherine's words encouraged me. I nodded firmly and squeezed her hand back. If they are up for it, we'll stand our ground. For Catherine's sake, I firmly resolved to protect my life and avenge my father-in-law. Catherine and I vowed to seek revenge against Tom and Karen. Catherine and I began preparations for our final confrontation. First, we had to lure Karen into our home. I want to cook something delicious for Tom when he gets discharged from the hospital. Can you teach me one of his favorite dishes? Without any suspicion, Karen came over. Although I disliked being with Karen even for a second, I endured and learned how to cook with her in the kitchen. Meanwhile, Catherine searched through Karen's bag and found the peanuts cookies. Catherine swiftly took just one cookie. The next day, I took the cookie to my company and requested a component analysis. I never thought that working at a food inspection company would come in handy at a time like this. A few days later, Tom was discharged from the hospital. I asked Karen to pick up Tom as I prepared a celebration meal for his recovery. Before Tom's arrival, Catherine and I prepared his favorite dishes and awaited the two. By the time we finished preparations, Tom and Karen returned. I made today's meal with Mom, after learning from Grandma. Tom happily sat down and began eating. Karen also seemed to enjoy her meal. After a while, a puzzled expression appeared on their faces. Hey, Mom. Look at this. No way. She dropped the piece of fried chicken she was holding, apparently too shocked to notice. Neither Tom nor Karen touched their food. Is the seasoning okay? I guess I couldn't match the taste of dishes made by my mother-in-law. Both mumbled something, looking down. This sprinkle not only tastes good, but also seems to boost vitality. My father-in-law once told me about it. Tom and Karen began shivering, possibly out of fear. Catherine, sprinkle this on their rice for them. Stop. Don't put that unknown thing on it. Why are you so scared? I just want both of you to live long lives. After all, you put it on my cake, didn't you? In the end, you ate it yourself and got hospitalized. I showed them the papers. I had our company's inspectors analyze the contents. The substance on the cake and the one in the peanuts cookies matched. What are you talking about? I don't know anything about that. The ingredients in the cookie you threw in our trash and the one Karen had are from the same product. How dare you go through someone's belongings? Besides, a friend gave me those cookies as a souvenir from a trip. I calmly placed the copied version of Tom's notebook on the table. So, what does it mean where it says cookies purchased online here? The notebook contained detailed entries like the manufacturer's name, product name, shipping date, and price. Tom and Karen's faces turned blush and then pale. It also says here, if only a tiny amount is given, it won't be detected. I stared sternly at Karen. This is related to your father-in-law's cause of death, isn't it? Tom, looking deflated, began to speak. Dad was getting in the way. Maybe he didn't like how close my mom and I were. He always had something to say, always interfering. He was so annoying. Yes, he constantly lectured Tom and me. saying things like "you two are not right" and "that's not a normal parent-child relationship." I couldn't stand it. So, I mixed peanuts cookies in the seasoning and fed it to him. The father-in-law was only concerned about the abnormal relationship between his mollycoddled son and his overly attached wife. Probably, Tom and Karen misunderstood his intentions. Their reasons were utterly selfish. I felt immense pity for the father-in-law, who had lost his life trying to establish a healthier family environment. Since it worked with your father-in-law, you tried the same method on me, right? Yes, you have the same peanuts allergy as me and Dad. You were also in the way. My anger turned into sheer disbelief. What you did is a crime. I'm reporting you to the police and submitting the evidence. Suddenly, Tom stood up and grabbed the copy from the table. He rolled it up, shoved it in his mouth, and forced himself to swallow. Karen, Catherine, and I were shocked and stared at Tom. Now the evidence is gone. The police will think it's just Emily's delusional story. Tom looked down at Catherine and me with a triumphant face. Tom, that's just a copy. The original is somewhere else, Catherine said calmly. Then, she placed her smartphone on the table. Now, you can't escape with any excuses. Catherine had planted the smartphone under the table and had been recording conversation by the apps from the start. It's over then. Tom collapsed weakly into his chair. And we were so close. Just a bit more and the nuisance would have been gone. Karen couldn't contain her anger and was banging the table with both hands. You two really thought you'd succeed with such a plan? Catherine said with an exasperated tone. No matter the plan, I will always protect Mom. I took out my smartphone. I'm contacting the police. Please admit your crimes and make proper amends. It's the least you can do for your father-in-law. As I tried to operate my smartphone, Tom and Karen began to grovel. Please, we apologize. Please spare us from the police. We're really sorry. Yes, we're so sorry. Please forgive us. Tom and Karen were rubbing their heads on the floor. Suddenly, Catherine began explaining various tactics of rebellion. Dad, you're a mollycoddled son who can't separate from his mom. So, a perfect crime is impossible for you. Firstly, you leave evidence too easily. If I were in your shoes. I quickly covered Catherine's mouth. Catherine, please use your knowledge properly. I looked into Catherine's eyes. Catherine met my gaze steadily. Okay, I understand. I'll avoid getting involved with such people. Also, I have something to report to Mom later. I hugged Catherine tightly. Okay, I understand. From now on, let's live peacefully, just the two of us. When the police were taking Tom and Karen away, the two were crying and screaming, giving the officers a hard time. Copies of the notebook, recorded voice, and the purchase history of peanuts left on Tom's computer became evidence, resulting in convictions, including for the stepfather's case. By the time Tom was prosecuted after the arrest, I had successfully divorced him. I received $20,000 each from Tom and Karen as compensation. Karen sold the family house to make the payments. Since Tom had no income to pay child support, he sold the house we lived in to cover it. This left Tom and Karen with no place to go once released. I used part of the compensation to make a grave for my stepfather. I wanted to properly mourn him. After the verdict for Tom and Karen was issued, Catherine and I reported the incident in front of my stepfather's grave. I'm sure he must be pleased in heaven. After the incident, Catherine showed me a piece of paper. Thing I said I'd report is this. It was the result of an IQ test. I was surprised and looked at it twice. It says 135. My intelligence quotient is 135. I was surprised again. I believe those over 130 are called gifted. Sorry for taking the test without telling you, Mom. I also used your credit card without permission. I was surprised again that Catherine could do such a thing. Later, she transferred to a school that accepts gifted children. Catherine, still not good with communication and not talking to anyone, is enjoying a liking for the environment where she can study what she's interested in as much as she wants. I'm enjoying living with Catherine and find my work fulfilling. Thanks to a livelier life and improved complexion, people often say I look younger. Since we started living together, Catherine has been hugging me frequently. Doing this releases a lot of the happiness hormone, oxytocin. I still don't know where oxytocin comes from, but it certainly makes me feel happy. And happily, my menstrual cycle has returned. I wonder if it's thanks to what Catherine calls the happiness hormone. I'll continue to live without losing smiles with Catherine.